All right. Hello class. For this video, I'm going to go over colored pencil techniques with you. Why am I going over this with you? Because you created your dream room, and from this you are now going to color it in. I would like you to color in your room using colored pencils. So let's go over some colored pencil techniques together as a class. I'd like to go over 5 different techniques. All right, the first one is called consistency. The second one is value. The third one is blending. The fourth is blending but using complementary colors. And the fifth one is called stippling texture. The sixth box I have here, I have called line work. That is something we're going to do separate. So we're just focusing on these 5 boxes. To create, you're creating this activity yourself. So what I'm going to have you do is fold your piece of paper. So you should have just a blank piece of paper. The first thing you could do, this is printer paper, by the way. You can use sketch paper, printer paper, whatever you want. You're going to fold it in half. Okay, fold it in half, long ways, so that it creates the middle crease. Then we're making 6 boxes. So in order to create 6 boxes, what you could do is do like a tri-fold. So fold it halfway, fold it the other, so that they meet like this. So you're creating thirds, right? So you have now 1, 2, and 3. After you do that, what I'd like you to do, these are big boxes that you've created. You don't need to demonstrate these techniques in each of these boxes. I'm sorry, in the entire box. So what you could do is taking a pen or a pencil, just draw in a smaller box. This is about, I don't know, 1.25 inches by 1 inch. I mean, you could do 1 inch by 1 inch, 1.25 inches by 1.25 inches, 2 inches by 2 inches, but I don't think it needs to be any bigger than that. And if you're in school, you can kind of see mine in person when I see you, all right? So let's do the first one. The first one's consistency. Consistency is just making sure that the amount of pressure you place on the colored pencil is consistent. It's the same throughout. So it's not going to be dark and it's not going to be light. It's going to be consistently the same pressure that's put on the pencil. My suggestion would be to work in a smooth surface. So my countertop is like a stressed wood, and there's like panels. So I don't want to put my paper on top of this because it's going to pull up the marks of the table underneath. So what I did was I took a sketch pad and I'm just putting my my activity on top of here. So you can use whatever colors you want. I'm going to go ahead and use red for this. So just to kind of show you, this would be what not to do, right? So this is one pressure, right? You can see it's pretty consistent. But if I start doing this, it's becoming a little inconsistent. If I start going out of the lines, maybe like there's white space showing and it's dark and it's light in certain areas, that would be very inconsistent. It's okay when lines are inconsistent if you're purposely doing it like for a texture or something like that. But for the purpose of trying to keep it consistent, this is not correct. All right, so in this box, I want you to practice keeping your pencil pretty consistent, and I want you to have control over it. So keeping it inside the box. Try not to go outside of the box. All right, notice that the pressure that I'm placing on the colored pencil is consistent. It's the same all around. I'm filling in all of my white spaces. There are 2 different ways that I would approach this. Notice the way that I'm coloring. I'm kind of circling. I'm doing like a circular type of a motion, keeping the same pressure throughout, okay? Another approach, and I'm going over areas that I think could use a little bit more colored pencil. Another approach would be to just do lines like this, using the same pressure. Okay, so now I'm seeing lines from right to left, right to left. That's how I'm doing it. Now, if you're lefty, maybe you're going to do left to right like this. But this works for me too. But you can see that in this example, it's pretty consistent. There's no white space, and the value of it is consistent. All right, so that's what I'd like to see from you in the first box. In the second box, we talk about value. Value is how dark or light something is. So the more pressure you put on your pencil, right, the darker it's going to be. The less pressure you put on it, the lighter it's going to be. If you put kind of an in-between pressure, it's going to be in between dark and light, right? This is called a dark value, a middle value, and a light value, right? So depending on what type of red you want, or let's say if maybe something has more light on it than something else, you might make it lighter in value versus darker in value. What I want you to do here is create what we call a value scale. So maybe I'll write that here. Instead of just writing value, I want to see a value scale. So this would be a scale from dark to light. So now you're trying to control your pressure from dark to light. So I'm gonna start at the top with a really, really dark, maybe I'll split it up, like this is gonna be dark value, okay? I'm gonna do it in thirds. I'm gonna do a dark value, and then a middle value, and a really light value. Okay, so that's my dark value. This is as dark as my colored pencil's really getting. I'm putting a lot of pressure on this. Okay, now I'm gonna get into a middle value. So now I'm gonna take a little bit of pressure off of my colored pencil. And my middle value is gonna go to about here. Okay, now I feel like this could be a little bit darker. So that's my middle value. And then I'm gonna do a light value here. I feel like I got erasers can work with colored pencils. It won't get rid of it completely, but I just felt like it was a little bit too dark in that area, so I wanted to. So you can leave it like this if you wanted. So this would be a value scale from dark to middle to light, or you can create like what we would call a gradation. Hold on a second. So that would be a transition from dark to middle. So now I'm gonna take this and kind of slowly have it blend in. So I'm gonna have my darker value blend into my middle value, and then my middle value blend into my lighter value. And that would be a value scale, like a gradation. And I did go out of the lines a little bit. Okay. The third one is called blending. This is just to show you that the colors you have don't necessarily need to be the colors that you use, right? Or the only colors that you have, right? So we kind of did this with our oil pastels, right? So these are my colors. Doesn't mean that I'm limited to these. I could mix them. So let's say I wanted to make a red, and I wanted it to have a little bit of orange hue to it and brown, right? I can take these three colors and I can mix them together. So what I would do is just sample out some colors that you were thinking about using in your project and see how they look. So this is my red, right? You can do more than just one blend. I'm gonna do just one blend. So I'm gonna put my red down. Okay, And then I'm gonna put the orange on top just to show you what it looks like. I can even go back in with my red if I wanted to. But you can actually blend really nicely with colored pencils. And get really nice blends. Okay. And then maybe I want to add a little bit of brown to it. Make it a little bit darker. So by blending the colors, it definitely changes the look of the color, right? Maybe I want to go back in with more red, right? So you can keep layering until you get the look that you want. So in this one, I just want you to take some colors and experiment blending them together and see what new colors you come up with. All right, the fourth one is called Blending Complementary. This is really good for creating shadows. So in your room, you're gonna have shadow. Light's gonna hit specific things and then create shadows on parts of the furniture. We'll get into this a little bit more, but I want you to understand that to create shadows, a good approach would be to use the complementary color of whatever color it is that you're using. So let's say you had a piece of furniture that was red. You would use green to create your shadow. And this goes for painting too, guys. If your furniture has like a yellow hue to it, your shadow would be purple and blue would be orange. So in this one, I'm gonna do one just as an example, but you're going to do all of them. Actually, I'll do two as an example. You're gonna lay down your complementary, you're gonna lay down, in fact, I'll do all of them. You're gonna lay down your primary colors. Your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. So the first thing I'm gonna do is lay down my primary colors. Okay, and then I have blue. Okay, then what I'm gonna do is blend my secondary colors with my complementary. So your red and green are complementary to one another. Red is your primary, green is your secondary color. So now I'm gonna take my green and I'm going to lay that on top of my red, and this will create a nice color for like a shadow. So if you had a carpet that was red, and you wanted the furniture, you wanted to create a shadow underneath your furniture, you could use the color green to create that shadow. Now right now I'm doing this pretty light. I could put a lot more pressure on this and it's gonna make it a lot darker. I could even keep going over it with red and green until I got the blend that I was looking for. So the primary, yellow and purple are complementary colors. Yellow is your primary, purple is your secondary. So by placing purple on top of my yellow, it's gonna create a nice shadow. So again, if you had a piece of furniture that was yellow or a yellow hue, like something that's warmer like this, putting purple on an area where maybe you were trying to create a shadow is going to give it the feeling of a shadow being casted on that object. I'm doing this pretty quickly. I actually don't like the way that one came out. This is what we would call inconsistent, right? The purple is inconsistent on top of here. Don't know why. It's just not picking up in areas. I have to work on that a little bit more. Yes, that's being shown as inconsistent to me. I think something with the yellow. Blue and orange are complementary colors. Blue is your primary, orange is your secondary. Okay, so if I were going to take my orange and place it on top of here, this would be a good color. And vice versa, if your object was green, purple, or orange, you would place the opposite color on top of that. So these would be good colors to use to create nice shadows, warm shadows, or brown tones in your work. All right, so I definitely want to see you starting to blend using those and be aware of it. The last one, I just want you to kind of have fun and practice like different textures. Right, so let's say that, I don't know, you had texture of water, right? Maybe you would use different blues, right? Maybe you would change the value, have it be inconsistent. Like maybe the water would, to show ripples, you would make some areas darker, some areas lighter, right? So right now I'm kind of adding lines in different areas to create this water ripple. And maybe I'm going to go in and add different blues into it as well. We kind of did something similar with the oil pastels, right? To create cool textures. Right, so this is a good place to kind of practice things like that. Maybe you wanted to create like a texture of grass, right? Kind of sample something like that. Maybe here is a good place to practice adding textures that you might add into like a shag rug, right? That you have, or a soft blanket or something like that, right? This could also be identified as like a shaggy rug, things like that. So this is just a place for you to practice some of your colored pencil techniques before you actually apply it to your bedroom. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, enjoy.